I would say at first I really wanted to just get good at podcasting and interviewing because growing up I just loved like interviews, and especially Howard Stern. Like once I was able to watch YouTube, I would listen to like him and Opie and Anthony because they just had like the most genuine dialogue to where the people that came on their show were already fans of them. So they didn't want to let down the people listening. And that's how he could get away with asking like real shit. Like, why were you there last week and not with this person?
Yeah.
And they have to answer. And he's like, what, are you going to be a phony and not answer this? And it like, I'm sitting there as a kid, like, how is he saying this, dude? Like, this is real shit. And I was just like, dude, I just want to make a podcast to where everyone can hear me talk about like, I don't only talk about dick jokes, but a lot of time when I started the podcast, it was a lot of dick jokes. So you can think dick jokes and stuff like that's funny. And my stand-up is a lot like funnier. But I also want to have another side of like all the things I like, you know? So if someone actually fucks with my stand-up, they see this and it's like the Britney episode. It's like, oh, he likes roller coasters, and you can actually create something. But it's just so funny how like earlier you said we were similar, because like my biggest dream, and I was talking to my friend Ernie B, who owns the barbershop. In his barbershop, he has like a little stage in the corner. And like when I would see Howard do the concerts, I was like, dude, my dream setup is to literally have like an interview room and then a stage over there to do like, because I do music breaks every episode. Imagine having artists come by each week and we just pre-record music breaks or just have them there, or like have a live episode with that stuff. So like that would be my dream, is to basically like keep that going to where I can promote people, or it's just like me talking with comics, but then also keep the music thing going. Cause like the all art show that I do with my friend Ty, it's 3 comedians and then 2 bands close out the show. And that's where I got to have fun doing that. So I just want to like keep being able to do that, and then maybe do like a type of festival, you know, to where I could like do a mini local thing with a lot of artists and stuff. Like, I just think the podcast is just such a good way there. It's like, it keeps putting me in the directions of things and people to where it's like, I would have just been in a stand-up lane. So I don't know. I just look at the podcast as like, it's weird. It's like my fantasy factory of like all the things I fuck with and like, and if I see a person, I'm so shy I won't go up and talk to them. But with the podcast, I can like talk to people.
Sure.
It's sick.
Sure. I can definitely relate with that. Getting old is weird. Being an adult is weird. Making friends as an adult is very strange.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier if you have like a vessel like this, because instead of like, and maybe not, it wouldn't be weird, but like, you know, we had never really met in person before. Yeah, no. And if you just like hit me up like, hey, like, you know, like, hey, yeah, want to grab some coffee? You want to come over to my house, just hang out? Be like, who the fuck is, like, what is this?
You know, I wasn't sliding in, which nothing against that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it is hard, dude, especially just reaching out and saying want to chill. Even with like artists that I do meet on the podcast after, where you'll see it end and like, all right, cool. And they'll get their keys and leave. And other guests, like even with you and your girl, you guys stayed after for like another 5 to 10 minutes and we just talked about shit and we're just messing around. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're just like, okay, that's where I take it. It's just like, all right, that's when I'll hit them up later and say, I want to go on your podcast or talk. Like if at the end of mine, we're still talking and it kind of doesn't shut off, I'm like, all right, this is how it is. But besides that, dude, no, I was truly wondering how people do it if you don't like find a hobby. And that's why hobbies are great, you know, because you at least like section into like, all right, these are what these people like. You know, it's funny, but you're almost like a little kid where it's just like, all right, who's wearing a blue shirt? I have a blue shirt. And you're just kind of like searching for it, you know?
Sure. It's so interesting and really cool, because there are a lot of friends that I've made from the podcast and from the music scene and stuff over the years. And it's cool, like just being able to like hang out with them, not at a show, not on a podcast, like just like whatever, like, you know, go get sushi, go ride a roller coaster, whatever the hell it is. And I really value that stuff. And I think that when I was a little bit younger, maybe I took it for granted. And now like I almost prefer that stuff. It's like at a point now, like especially with the band stuff, where like we'll get asked to play a show sometimes. And I'm like asking myself, like, why are we going to play this show? And I've talked about this before with other guests. And I don't know if you can relate with this as a stand-up, because it's not as difficult to do a stand-up show as it is for a band to drag gear across town.
Yeah, dude.
But it's like, if all we want to do, it's like, why are we playing the show? Oh, because we'll get to see everybody. It's like, well, why do we have to carry all of our heavy ass shit across town? Why don't we just hang out? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love playing, but at the same time, it's like, asking myself, why are we doing this particular thing? And if it is just because we all want to hang out and chill, then like, let's just do that. You know, like, I don't know if, you know, these people that just saw us play a set a month ago need to see us play the same songs again. I think maybe they'll be okay. And, working as a band on a local level, I think is a lot. It creates a lot less opportunity than I imagine you have as a stand-up, because you could probably find different open mics, and it's not a big deal for you to just go somewhere, show up and do 5 to 10 minutes. Like, it's so much of a pain in the ass, especially for a band. And not only it's just like there aren't as many shows, and there are open mics. Yeah. And if you are like that type of an artist, I guess you can take advantage of that. But being in like a band, maybe it's a little bit harder to turn down those shows. Like I'm saying that you should, because maybe that is the only show that you have an opportunity to play that month. Whereas like with a stand-up, I imagine like doing one show a month probably sounds like a nightmare and completely unsustainable.
It would suck.
Yeah. But that's the case for a lot of bands.
I think that's the funny part too, because you'll hear even during when I started doing the comedy and music shows, is that a lot of the comedians after will see the bands playing and they're just like, they're so lucky, dude. People can have drinks, they can have conversations and listen. Dude, if one word is missed, I'm fucked. Which it's like, it's definitely true, but it's also the frequency of how often we can get up in the crowds too. So I think like that yin yang almost evens out, because your opportunities are less too, and you really got to show out. You got to make sure that while the people are talking, they have to listen for you to get rebooked and start getting more traction too. So as much as people like to say it's easier, I think it's like it's all in a different facet. You really can't compare. It's like orange and apples, you know? Yeah,
I wouldn't say that it's like easier from an execution standpoint, but it does seem like they're like on if you were gonna write down a list of what you need to do for a metal band to get ready for a metal show versus the list of what you would need, it would be a shorter list. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, dude, 100%. That's why when I heard the comics, they would always be like, look how easy it is. And they're just doing that. And that's why I said it was like apples and oranges, because it's like, you can't compare how easy it is, because also when we're on stage, we're not playing an instrument. Like, we're not doing two things at once, you know? And it's like, it's just one of those things where, going back to the clicky thing, artists always like to be like, well, isn't it easier doing it that way? But then as soon as they start getting some hype, they're like, I wish they'd know how hard it was, you know, like it's always never good. But that's also why I like doing those shows, because then the artists get to talk after and have conversations like this and open up the comedian's mind that it's like semi the same thing. But dude, something about music though, like going up on stage, I don't know if every comedian wants to be a rock star, but there has to be like, it has to be sick at one point just to be able to hear like a dope fucking riff and just to hit a high note. I mean, my shower high note is pretty sick, but like, translating that on stage, I just want to do it once. And I know like karaoke is different, but I'm talking about hiring a band and doing a cover. Okay,
sure.
Like, it just has to be done once, and in front of a concert where I don't think they know I'm coming, because then I don't know how much draw Jeff singing like "Welcome to the Jungle" will bring. But if it is like a concert where they're like, we're letting like a kid who's not feeling the best come on, he's doing this shit, and then let me like jam where the crowd's with it. Come on, dude.